What is love? We often hear the word love used in many different ways. So then let me ask you, how do you define what love means? Let's say, for example, you go around and you ask people to tell you what love means. Chances are you'll get many different responses from many different people. Some will explain love as a feeling. Some will explain it as an emotion. Others may explain love as a friendship or adoration or admiration. Still, others will explain it as a passion or sensual pleasures, etc. So then what is love? Is it an emotion? Is it a feeling of being cared for? Or is it the sensual feeling? Well, if we go and Google what love is, for example, we get many different kinds of responses. We'll get some songs on the topic of love. And then if we keep scrolling, then we'll find some articles and ideas that are written about love, what the meaning of love is, what it means to love and be loved, etc. And there's so much information out there on this very topic of love that someone who's trying to do research on this topic could easily get confused. Some may even say that love is an emotional state because they use the words, I am in love. Right? So when you are in something, you are in a state. And so love is very difficult to define in the English language. And so anyways, the important thing to remember is this. There are many different types of love. The lowest level of love is eros, which the Greeks use, and they use it to denote that it is an emotional sense of love. It's the sensual pleasure, the passions. But as we all know, love has to go much deeper than just the senses. Because if love is simply a sensual feeling, then that feeling has no roots. Love has no roots. It won't last long. You may feel attraction, you may feel love today, tomorrow, but then afterwards it fades away. Think about a marriage, for example. It begins with sensual desires. The love between the man and the woman, the attraction that is present there. But if that love is going to last, it must evolve into the love that entails serving and giving of oneself for the other. The agape love, in other words. And so here I'd like to offer 3 points for us to reflect on further in the Gospel of St. John, chapter 15, verses 9 to 17. And also I invite you to please remember to subscribe to this YouTube channel to receive weekly scriptural reflection on faith. So then let's get started. Point number 1, Jesus invites his disciples to love. Here's what John 15, verses 9 to 10 says. Jesus says to his disciples, "As the Father loves me, so I also love you. Remain in my love. If you keep my commandments, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and remain in his love." Jesus invites us to remain in his love. And so then how do we remain in God's love? By doing God's will in our life. And so then what is God's will? That we love one another. This passage makes it clear. And so if we take a look at the Greek word for love then, used in this very gospel passage, it is the agape word, form of love. And so then Jesus is not referring to an emotional form of love like a sensual feeling. No, Jesus is referring to the higher form of love. That means giving of oneself for the other. And so we continue this gospel passage. Here's what it says. "This is my commandment. Love one another as I love you. No one has greater love than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you." Friends, Jesus invites all of us to love one another. He says, "You are my friends if you do what I command you." It is through our very act of love that we demonstrate our love for Jesus. And so then the point is clear. Love is not just based on words. It is not going to someone and saying, "I love you," Because words are nice if we simply say that, right? And love also is not just that feeling, that emotion, that sensual pleasure. If we truly love that person, then how do we prove our love for that person? Think about this. So if you say to someone, I love you, and if you truly love that person, then someone may ask you, well, prove it. Prove your love for that person, right? And it's hard to prove in words, but in action, it's easy, right? Because the actions reinforces the words. The actions demonstrates the love. And so then this point brings us to point number 2, and that is our love must bear fruit. Our love must bear fruit. In other words, it's not just about the words we say, but the actions that we do. Because the actions reinforces the work that we do. Words are nice, but they must be backed up by action. So then when you turn to someone and say, I love you, how do you really prove your love for that person? It's easy. Through action, through your very love for that person. And so, for example, Jesus says he loves his disciples. How does he prove his love for them? By laying his life down for them. That's how he proved his love. By suffering and dying on the cross for them. Think about it this way. Whenever you do something, there are always consequences that comes from the action. The consequences can be good or bad. And the way to determine whether the consequence is good or bad is based on our action. And so if you do something good, it bears good fruit. And on the contrary, if you do something bad, there will be little or no fruit. Right? Think about it in that sense. And most of us can tell the difference between good and not good, good and bad, etc. Right? And certainly, that topic can get very complicated. But the point I want to share is this. If we strive to do the good, then the consequences from those actions bear good fruit. And so then one can say that we can judge a person's action based on the fruit that it produces. And this is true. Just like a good tree produces good fruit, it is important in our life to do God's will and to do it in a genuine way. Because over the long course of time, we will see that our actions come to produce good fruit. It's important then for us to take a moment each day, sometimes during the day maybe, or at the end of the day, and then reflect on this question. What good did I do today? And usually we can say we've done something good for the day. For example, we helped a friend with a project. We helped clean the neighbor's yard, deliver food to those in need, etc. Right? These are just examples of the good we have done in one day. And also too, it makes us feel good. But more importantly, we know that our work bears good fruit. Now at the same time too, it's important for us to reflect also on our bad actions, right? Our bad actions of the day. Perhaps we were not nice to our neighbors and yelled at them. Maybe we were not kind to a coworker, or maybe we lie, cheat, and steal, etc. Now, these bad actions have negative consequences as well. And it's precisely in reflecting on these actions that we come to recognize our mistakes and our failings, and then figure out a way how we can do better tomorrow. This is a way how we can better ourselves. And it all begins with one key word, and that is love. Love. Which then brings us to the third and final point I'd like to share here. Love one another as Jesus himself has shown us his love for us. Right? Jesus' commandment is clear. Love one another. Love one another as I have loved you, Jesus says. And so, how does Jesus demonstrate his love for us? He does so through the cross, through the crucifix, which is the Christian symbol of love and of hope. The commandment to love each other ultimately entails serving others. Love must be demonstrated in action. Because in the modern culture, perhaps this is a strange and foreign idea. Think about this for a moment. the idea of serving others, most things we read, we hear, or we watch on television tells us to serve ourselves, tell us to serve ourselves first and forget about the others and to put ourselves first. Yet when loving and serving can be strange, it can be a strange idea in this day and age, it's important for us to just take a step back and reflect on the meaning of this very commandment that Jesus just shared. Love. And so then we ask the question, how can I love others today? How can I live a life of love? You know, if we talk about laws, right, there can be so many rules and regulations and laws, but if we can condense it all down to one word, that one word is clear, is what we've spoken about up to this point, and that is love, right? Love is at the heart of everything. It is the unwritten law, and this is why in verse 17 of this passage in the Gospel of John chapter 15, Jesus says, "This I command you, love one another." You know, there's a saying that goes like this: the one supreme law is the law of love. Everything else is just commentary. Now think about this for a moment. If we put love at the center of what we think and do, then everything will be great and wonderful. But as we all know, not everything is great and wonderful, and that's because of our own selfishness and our own sinful nature. That's why it's so difficult sometimes to love. But we try it anyways. We try it anyways. Try to do it every day. And so the important point to remember is this: every one of us is capable of love. We are capable of loving others and to be loved by others. Think of our parents, for example. It's clear that parents love their children, right? And they love their children so much that they take care of their children. They don't ask or say, why should I do this? Or why should I do that? Why should I wake up in the middle of the night to feed my child? Why should I take my child to the doctor when he is sick? They don't ask questions. They don't complain. They just do it. So why is this? It's because of love. Friends, the main message of the gospel we just reflected on, the Gospel of John chapter 15, verses 9 to 17, makes this point clear. Jesus commands all of us to love one another. And we do this because we know that God first loved us and that he invites us to go and do likewise. That is to go and to love. It is through loving that we learn to accept each other's faults, failings, and mistakes. By loving the other, we are able to see beyond their limitations and focus on the person as each individual son or daughter of God. In a marriage, for example, there will always be arguments and disagreements. But if there is love, the husband and the wife can always overcome these arguments, these disagreements, these disappointments. In fact, everything can be overcome through love. And so my challenge for all of you is this: how are you demonstrating your love for each other this day? May God bless you.